Hello everybody, I'm Alexy Khrabrov, the organizer of SF Text, and here we are on location at Groupon, and today we have a meetup on ontologies, which are very important in any kind of organization of text. And here with us, we have Jay Wacker, Ontology Architect from Quora. Hi Jay.
Hello.
It's great to have you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Maybe first you can tell us a little bit about what are the ontologies and why Quora needs these ontologies.
Well, so Quora, since its inception, has had a very extensive topic base, and the ontology forms the organization and understanding of these topics. Mm-hmm. And this is used very critically at the heart of the whole Quora question and answer system, mm-hmm. Used in many different facets. And so I'm the person in charge of the curation of the topics, the structure, the philosophy and theory behind the structure, and also the systems and how we're going to be building it out going into the future. Mm-hmm.
So we talked before, and I know that you are also a professor of physics at Stanford University, and I used to be a physicist as well in my previous life. So I wonder, how does one move from physics into ontologies, and what is your interest in the ontologies?
Well, I've always loved structure. And as a physicist, that's what you're sort of brought up to understand and to think in terms of what are the different structures of nature of laws. As a theoretical particle physicist, I studied the laws of nature. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a lot of philosophy in that, and a lot of that carries over into the structure of essentially ideas and concepts. Mm-hmm. And so it's was a very natural transition. And then on top of it, I was a longtime Quora user, a lover of it, and knew the team very well. Mm-hmm. And so it was just a very natural transition that went off pretty seamlessly.
So that's great to hear, because folks say that Quora's ontology is one of the best ontologies in industry, and we all know that almost any website you go to, it has some kind of an ontology. It's usually, it has sections, or if it's Amazon, it has different products and so forth. And a lot of them are kind of ad hoc creations, and people just, sit in the room and they decide these are going to be the layer. So you have some kind of drop-down menus on sites, and have different categories of industries, right? And it all seems very ad hoc-ish. So, as a scientist, I was always wondering, is there is there any good scientific way? So from your experience, do you think that there is kind of the right algorithmic way to create an ontology, or is it possible to have different kinds of ontologies in different spaces, and it's kind of not well-defined problem?
So, ontology, from my reading of both the philosophy and the information science literature, is that it's not a finished science. However, there are structures that you can impose upon different sectors of the knowledge space. And so in Quora, we aim to cover all of human knowledge. So it's a global ontology, similar to, say, DBpedia, Wikipedia's derived ontology. Mm-hmm. And so from having structures in place, we can actually make the ontology predictable and understandable, and roughly adhere to sort of the intuitive notions that you would hope for. So Quora's ontology historically has been community-driven and community-based, and so one of the challenges there is that we need to make the ontology both complete and predictable while maintaining the community-driven aspect of it, the organic nature of it. So actually, a lot of my work is interfacing with the community, making sure that how we're going forward is maintaining the Quora-ness of Quora. Mm-hmm. The Quora topic system.
Interesting. So, so people basically are using the ontology to find different things. So, personally, I'm often just starting to search on questions, and I kind of find, right? So I wonder if when you look at user behavior, how many users do you see actually are descending down the ontology? How many people are browsing through the ontology?
Right now, we actually don't have a great browse product, so that's something that we're working on and for the future. So I don't. So we don't actually break that out right now. It's mostly for the people who are actually just interested in different areas of knowledge. And one of my jobs is to make sure that these different areas of knowledge sort of have similar structure, similar philosophy, similar type systems, so that we can understand them and use them in an intelligent manner inside the product of Quora.
So instead of browsing, you would kind of use them for relating various questions to each other.
Yep.
Right. Interesting. So for instance, I know Quora has a lot of knowledge about startups, right? Like a lot of founders are there, and people it's kind of an interesting community where you can ask, direct question of, Michael Dell, and he will tell you, how he did how he founded Dell. So so you have this industry knowledge there, right? So do you try to kind of make these connections more obvious? For instance, can somebody who looks at social networking startups be related to somebody looking at Facebook questions? They will discover similar Twitter questions. Do you want to enable this, or is just side effect of
I think that having things that are actually that are similar ontologically should have similar structures, both in terms of the subtopics under them, and also potentially the questions. That's part of the predictability, reliability, making sure that we have the knowledge space covered in a reasonably complete way.
You're going to talk about it later, about all the technical considerations. But I'm wondering, so what are the kind of touch points? Where do the users kind of interact with Ontology? Where will they become aware of it? And
so the ontology is mainly they mainly come into contact with the topics. We try not to make users have a mind meld with the entire topic system and the ontology behind it to be able to use Quora in an effective way. So we try to make sure that we use the ontology to make our system more intuitive and intelligent, so that we need to require less interaction from people who use Quora, whether it's asking a question or getting answers or distributing the writing to people who are interested. So.
But you have some crowdsourcing tools, right? Like you have tools for people to correct.
Oh yes, absolutely. Everything is available in product for people to modify, create new topics, set the types, to set what type of topic it is, where the topic falls in the taxonomy of topics, and so we have all that available for the community to use, and that's historically been how we've done the ontology, and it's led to, I think, a very diverse set of topics that really cover a lot of human knowledge. And so now what we want to do is we want to make sure it's sort of uniform, which which is beyond what sort of users are easily going to spend time making every possible make sure that every possible subtopic is in every parallel topic. That's something that we don't want people spending their time on.
Right,
so.
and probably they don't have the full visibility, right? So
exactly.
That probably will help you with completeness, but not necessarily uniformity.
Exactly. And right now we're working for uniformity, making sure the structure is regular, setting up the type system so that we can actually act more intelligently about the topics. So
do you see people kind of arguing or disagreeing about topics, right? Like, so somebody can go in add a lot of detailed topics. Somebody would rather have a hierarchical structure. Do you see any of these kind of interactions?
We do see that occasionally, and the biggest issue usually is that topics are being used in the same topics being used in multiple different ways. And so a lot of this actually requires disambiguation, because it becomes very confusing if you're using a topic in multiple different ways to set in any one portion of the taxonomy, the topic graph. So if you break it apart into the right subcomponents, so that you're actually speaking about one entity, it actually usually becomes pretty clear what the right place is just by just going back to the definitions of what you mean by that concept.
Do you have any things like Wikipedia for disambiguating a topic?
We use parentheticals. Just we're building out a type system, but we use parentheticals at the end of topics to clarify what the scope is. So for, say, Captain America, there's lots of things you can mean by Captain America, whether it's the character, whether it's perhaps the movie, whether it's the creative franchise, whether it's the comics, or various other aspects that you can imagine. The Captain America figurine, the toy that comes out, right? They all are different concepts, but you need to specify which one you're actually speaking about. And if you just use the topic Captain America, children talking about what the best Captain America figurine is will be intermingled with people talking about detailed aspects of the comics from the 1970s.
Right. So okay, great. So obviously you put a lot of work into this ontology and users. Are there any ways for the world at large to use it? Can it be, if it's a truly universal ontology, right? You can let others map things onto it. Is it possible?
That is not possible right now, and there are no immediate plans to do that. It's just the return on investment just is not quite there at this point. In the future, it's possible, but at this point, we're not planning on doing it in the near term.
Yeah, I found that's interesting because I was at Cloud at some point before, and Cloud has an API which kind of lets you classify influencers by topic. So it has an ontology, and folks at Prismatic now they actually make their topic graph available, right? And so they, I think they see value basically. So I'm wondering, we have several graphs like this, right? So obviously, Prismatic people, they blog about how they created the interest graph, put a lot of work into that because it's important to surface news. Wikipedia has its own ontology, and obviously, we have several public graphs like this. So, do you think in the future some kind of convergence of these systems, Quora and Wikipedia and others?
I don't necessarily see that. I'm more familiar with Wikipedia's the DBpedia ontology, and the entities that are associated with it are actually quite different between Quora and Wikipedia. I mean, there's a level of notability in terms of what's even acceptable for Wikipedia articles, and it's really important to like how you organize the structure is different because like Quora is great at getting at experiential knowledge. So how you organize where you can where you might find experiential knowledge is different than where it would be valuable in Wikipedia. So these are different systems. The high level ontology you might think are you can come down to similar structures, but once you get down into sort of the bulk of the ontology, where you're getting into the large number of topics, I think there'll be significant differences just based upon the use case.
Interesting. So basically, it looks like the usage defines still the kind of ontology. So Wikipedia is an encyclopedia and kind of definition of facts, right? And so and Quora is Q&A, right? And basically, so it seems that the ontology for kind of questions people may ask, right, will be guided by this use case of questions, right? And so maybe the prismatic interest graph will be different because it's guided by kind of news, right? So this is interesting. So we'll see different ontologies based on this use case. I wonder if we can compare, as computer scientists, we can compare trees, right, and graphs. So I wonder what we will find, right, if you compare these graphs formally in some way, right? For instance, can you talk about like the depth or maybe the branching factor? Because there is this ad hoc rule that you have, humans have to have 5 ± -2 branches, right? That's how they kind of easier remember. Do you have any rules like that in your ontology?
So first we have a graph. We are not a tree, so you have multiple parents. We think that's actually very important for defining concepts. Many concepts are intersections of ideas. So for instance, a perfectly acceptable topic are Italian restaurants in North Beach.
Yes.
And that's the intersection of Italian restaurants and North Beach.
North Beach is part of San Francisco.
Yes, and then Italian restaurants in and of itself, right, is an intersection of Italian food and cuisine with restaurants. And so naturally you'd want to actually take the topics up in both directions. In terms of the rough rules, we're hoping that for most of the parent-child relationships, we're aiming for, say, 10 to 20 children, maybe 5 in some cases. Probably not more than 20 because it just becomes very difficult to navigate beneath that. With the exception of ISA relationships and ISA kind of relationships where you can have arbitrarily many types of examples of a concept. And we do encode that via parent-child relationships in a special way. And then in terms of parentage, we really hope to keep the parentage down to 1, 2, 3 in most cases, not have lots of concepts because you really run into sort of global problems if you have too many parents.
Yes.
And so we were very conscious of that. So yeah, I think we're planning on having a strict rule of 6 and aiming for 1, 2, 3 for most subjects.
So the degree you prefer is between 10 and 20, 10 to 20 children under a parent.
But yeah, possibly. Some will be 5. It depends a lot on the actual topic and how much you. It's essentially a trade-off between breadth versus depth. And so, do you want to keep on navigating down versus width? And so, how many levels can you actually keep track of in your head and actually find? We're dealing with the trade-off of that.
I wonder, can you measure this, right? As experimental scientists, we can actually instrument this. And I was always wondering, in trade-offs like this, breadth versus depth, you can actually make an A/B experiment, and you can, structure it this way versus that way. Are you guys doing anything like that?
We are not doing A/B testing at this point on the structure of the ontology. It's something that we could potentially do. I think that we are not planning on having this be massively visible to the average person who uses Quora. So it's a lot more what actually functions best in terms of getting the content on Quora to the people who are interested in it.
Yes.
And so it's really the bottom line as opposed to other sort of metrics in terms of like people understanding what the ontology is versus what we really care about, which is having people write great questions and answers on subjects.
Right, but you still can measure the outcome, right? So I had actually this idea. I wonder what you think about it. So we can actually say let's measure all the interactions of people with ontology, maybe indirectly, by kind of seeing what kind of knowledge they navigate, right? And so they have paths through the ontology. And let's say that the efficiency is sum of all of these paths of all the people in a unit of time, and then you have your outcome, which may be total page views or some metric, right, of overall site performance. And so basically you can have a function where you have different structure of ontology, and then it will lead to total aggregate of all the paths traveled, which may differ based on the ontology, and then you have your final objective function, right? So conceivably, you can compare efficiency of different ontologies by just looking at all the paths people travel together and summing them up.
I would say that at the same time that may be near isomorphic to essentially the function that you're applying on top of the ontology, how you're actually using the ontology and taking the different versions of that ontology and different versions of the function acting on the ontology. So like how much you decay as you go up and down the graph versus how you decide to go on which path and decide on relevance. They're obviously very complicated functions there, and so like how much that differs between the two is really unclear to me, and so it seems like the better way to go is for my first impression would be to consider showing that there's an actual functional difference, like an actual material difference between the functions on the ontology and the different ontologies. Whether if they're just remappings of each other, then if you're actually able to algorithmically change the ontology to actually be able to do this A/B test, then that's really just a function acting upon the ontology, right?
Right.
So that can actually be just stripped off and put onto the into the actual function that's using it.
Yes.
And so all that is things that are part of just the standard way that we use the topics in the ontology.
I mean, that seems like, there are some experiments, we conceivably can run on this. And so I'm very curious. Perhaps there is some potential research.
So, I mean, they're not totally equivalent, but I think if you do an algorithmic change to it, they're functionally similar. So if you manually change the ontology, then that's very different.
Yes.
Than if you take the ontology and do this
transformation.
Transformation upon it.
Yes. Interesting. I think I find this topic fascinating. So
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of different experiments we can potentially do to compare this. So what is what is the hardest problems are you facing with the ontology systems right now?
The hardest problem is understanding the actual usage that's been developed over Quora in all the different areas of the ontology, and making sure that we maintain an authentic Quora ontology, and then making sure that we're faithfully representing it as we go forward and not just blowing it away, because there's a lot of value in it already. And so this is understanding the community, doing community management, as well as being a dictator at times and saying this is just what makes sense and this doesn't make sense. So that's those types of challenges are really there. Restructuring the entire ontology. There's only so much you can do manually if it's been manually created. Algorithmically if it's been manually created. And so that's.
So it's a techno-social system. It's basically a set of technical and social issues around them and maintaining this ontology. This is great. Well, thank you very much, Jay.
No, thank you.
We're looking forward to your talk.
Great.
And always great to have you as a self-text.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.